and we're in a trust recession. Business is all downstream from trust. What do people say? Behind your back, that's your brand. I'm building stages. Tension is no longer the oil, it's actually authenticity. Stewarding their gifts. The year I made the most money was the year I became addicted to it.
Welcome to another episode of the Talents Podcast. I have with me today a good friend, a entrepreneur, creator, a pastor, and really excited to have a conversation with Omar El-Khatri. Omar, man, thank you for sitting down with me. You're
Dude,
a real one for this.
What episode number is this?
This is episode number 1.
Gang tight. Let's go.
So full disclosure here, I think that I owe so much to you in just starting this. Omar is helping me. We don't say launch, we just start. We just do things. And so sitting down with you today is just me being proactive to say, all right, here we go. So episode 1 with Omar.
The greatest episode 1 anyone's ever witnessed.
Super grateful for it. Bro, I want to talk about a lot of things today. I want to unpack a lot of things today. But let's just start at the fact that in the last 3 years, you've built a business from very little income to 7 figures. You have multiple dozens of people paying you a lot of money to coach them through personal brand and content creation and just the depth of experience that you have in this space. But you do it so different than most people that I see do this. And I'm just curious, like why, let's just start with this conversation. Why does building a personal brand matter right now when you're talking about building a business?
Yeah, building a personal brand matters because business is all downstream from trust. And we're in a trust recession because there's so much. Is this AI? Is this a human? Is this just regurgitated information? When people know you for who you really are, you actually get to move faster. You get to the no quicker, or you get to the yes quicker. And there is something to say about people who are a lot richer than us. And that is that they have all the money in the world, but they see the value in building their personal brand. And I actually think this comes from Proverbs, where it says to not chase, to chase a good name over great riches.
Yeah.
And really a personal brand is your reputation. It's your name. And so I think there's just so much value in it as a business owner. But I actually think even if you're not a business owner, if you're a W-2 or you work in ministry, you have a personal brand. What do people say? Behind your back, that's your brand. What do people think about when they think about you? When they think about you, how do you make them feel? Or that's your brand. And I think in so many ways, there's putting your personal brand out there, like just as you are. And then there's also like architecting who you want to be known for. And yeah, so short story is, or example would be, we all know who Elon Musk is. Mm-hmm. Because he has a brand, he could sell a whistle and it sells out.
Yeah.
Because he has a brand, he can get 100
tequila.
Or tequila. Like everyone said, if I got a brand, I'm starting a tequila business and then I'm
100%.
selling. But there's actually a story about the founder of Panda Express, who's a self-made billionaire who was ready to write a book. And the marketing agency said, "You're not ready to write a book." It's like, what, dude? Like, I got the accomplishment. It's like, because no one knows you. So you're gonna write this book, great story, but no one knows you. And as a believer, I think it's imperative that we are prioritizing, being known. Jesus said, "Be salt and light," and so that's why I think it's important.
What is the difference between somebody who has a personal brand and an influencer? And specifically, from a faith-based perspective, I think Christians or pastors or leaders live in this space of we need to shy away from being an influencer, right? We
I
need to
literally
shy
saw
away
a clip because there's always two tensions. Everybody's trying to talk about like, the motive. Like we can't judge motive. My thing is like, I'd rather a good human being who loves the Lord be known than not, period, because of what's out there already. But as far as the difference between a personal brand and being an influencer, I actually think influencer is just semantics being used. It's just like the word
Sure.
being used.
Sure.
I think influence is a trait connected to a personal brand. So you can have a brand, or we all have a personal brand, but does your brand have influence? Now, from my understanding, that means, do people care? Do people go? Do people move? Do people react and respond to what it is you have to say? I think one of the highest forms of influence is changing the way somebody thinks about a certain activity. And so something I didn't realize I was doing, that I was creating while I was building my personal brand in my time at Think Media, was I didn't realize that I was actually building influence or creating influence, because I was affecting people's buying decisions. I'm enforcing or persuading their purchases. And that's a high form of influence, is that people are doing things because I said it. And so I say all that to say, that's what, like, I think the distinguisher is.
Would you say motives come into that conversation? With, let's just say you're a pastor, and should pastors be building personal brands? Do you know what I'm saying?
100.
So I hear what you're saying, but I think that a lot of people can read the motive through the content. Like they can feel,
100.
like, is this person just trying to be known and seen, or are they trying to actually serve a people and bring value?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
No, 100. I mean, I think it's a gray answer, because we talked about a few ministers that are really well known, and I see pastors who are marketers, like natural marketers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, exactly what gets the people
They've
going.
got that gift.
And that this is going to cause conversations and conflict and all those things. But I do believe pastors should be respected and known in their communities and even online. I mean, it's almost, that's all it is, by the way. Like Rory Vaden will say, your personal brand is the digitization of your reputation.
Right.
And so that's all that is. Should a pastor be known in their city? Like, should the people know that, like, oh, that's dude, he's the best. Every time he comes in, he tips big, or like every time he comes in, he's always so like, you're creating what people feel and sense about you. So I do think pastors should be having, prioritizing their personal brand, because there's something about showing the relatability, the accessibility or approachable nature of being a pastor. And a lot of that comes by sharing your ideas and your thoughts and your opinions. But yeah, to do it too, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you have the wrong motives, things don't last,
100%. What do you say to the people who say, with AI scaling as fast as it is, like, none of this matters. Everyone will just turn to ChatGPT for the answers that they're seeking.
Yep.
Like, what's the point of a personal brand?
Yes.
What do you say to that?
Yeah. One of my business coaches, his name is Myron Golden, and he said something very brilliant a couple of weeks ago. We did an event together in Nebraska, and for a long time, I mean, I would say, I know since 2015, you could say that the goal was to get attention. The goal of posting content online was to garner and retain attention. And even Alex Hormozi would say, attention is the new oil. So anyone that can get attention, you're setting yourself up for the future. But AI can get attention now. Like, you can make an AI bot or an AI creator, AI copywriter, and just post like images and that of texts. And something Myron said that was brilliant. He's like, attention is no longer the oil. It's actually authenticity. That's why in-person gatherings are important. That's why long-form content is important, because AI can't long-form content. AI can't put on an in-person experience. The future of, I believe the future of online learning is actually in-person courses, which actually sounds so counterintuitive. But if you have a repeatable process that gets people results, instead of selling it in a digital course, which people don't go through anyway, just have that repeatable experience in a workshop form, and it might serve you better. But that's where AI is probably going to not be able to catch up there.
Yeah, there's sort of a human component that people are always going to want.
Yeah, and even deeper, we could say it's a spiritual component that people want.
Yeah,
and that spiritual component is obviously not replaceable. And I'm at this stage, I don't know, it can't replicate this. We know what carries spirits, and we're spirit beings. And even though AI was created from spirit beings, it itself does not have a spirit. So
yeah.
I think that's why finding the ways that I'm always fascinated with those things. Because even with content ideas, my mind's always going like, what are content ideas that people can make right now that AI could never? One of those is behind the scenes content.
Yeah.
Like IRL, in real life. This is why actually Gen Z, we're doing like long form content right now, but the next generation behind us, it's not going to be long form content. It's going to be live content. That's why the Speedies and the
Keep it real.
all these these guys they got a camera on, and like, think about it. How cool would that be if a pastor or an entrepreneur, who's your favorite follower right now on social media, personal brand wise?
Personal brand. Well, I feel like I have to say you.
You're lying.
Because
Stop lying. No, I'm serious though.
No, I would actually say you are Daniel Priestley.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like he communicates in a very authentic way.
So he does.
To your point.
Yeah. Now, my question would be, how cool would it be if Daniel just on his his most jam-packed day where he's getting on a jet and he's speaking at a conference, and that was you got to see that side of him, and he was mic'd up in those conversations that he's having. Oh my gosh, Dan, I read your book, and you're seeing and you're watching that.
Yeah.
That I can't do that. So it's that whole, as people zig, you zag, and I think IRL, very long form content, is how you beat AI right now.
Could you be making the money that you're making right now if you didn't have a personal brand?
No, because everything is downstream from trust. And even in a sales conversation, if it was a close or if it was a cold sales conversation, there's so much reciprocity and rapport that needs to be built through that time that it'd be really hard to do. So what my personal brand does for me is it does that heavy lifting without me having to do it.
Yeah.
So, and that's why it's so powerful. I mean, I can go as far as even talking about stewardship. Like if we're supposed to multiply things we're given 24 hours. Well, my YouTube channel has gotten 80 years of watch time in the year of 2025.
Wow.
When I think about multiplying more than money, I'm multiplying a resource that is actually limited. But one way to actually multiply a limited resource is through content creation. But that's a different comment. We can get there later about stewardship.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to how fast I've been able to build my coaching and consulting company to multiple 7 figures, dude, when I first started doing challenges, I remember just like being so nervous to sell, and people were pumped to buy because they loved me. Bro, I just love who you are. So they didn't even care.
Yeah.
And most people think that their personal brand has to be built solely on your expertise. I think the expertise is just the doorway. So if you have a problem, you're choosing me as one of the voices to solve that problem, but you're connecting with me because I'm a man of God. I love coffee. I love golf. I love my family. That's why I like Omar. So yeah, no, it does the heavy lifting of selling when I'm offering something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about you is your sarcasm and just the sense of humor that you have. And what's funny about how that like plays out is like even on like some of the inner circle Zooms or whatever, there's like this joke, like how many coffees has Omar had?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
which Omar is going to show up. You know, you help a lot of people build their brands. I think we've just solidified the importance of it for young entrepreneurs, like that are like, okay, I get it now. I believe it. Where do you start? Like, what does that journey even look like?
Yeah.
You know, because I think a lot of people hear it and they go, okay, I get it. But then they're like, I still feel stuck.
Yep. And anytime you feel stuck in anything, you're not stuck in reality, you're stuck in your mind. That's why you're stuck. And so this is why I love helping people get unstuck in this regard. So if you are starting, or you know you're supposed to start building out your personal brand, and you're like, okay, what platform, what time of day do I post? What camera do I use? What mic? I literally would just tell that person to start with what you know. Like, no one's asking you to talk about anything you don't. No one's asking you to be somebody you're not. So what are you doing right now? And then you either talk about that, you can show that, you could show it, talk about it, and start on the platform that you feel you could be most consistent on. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of YouTube, and I think it's like the godfather of all content. But if you have too many obstacles in your way of trying to be consistent, because that you being consistent is how you're going to actually get through some things. And so, but yeah, I would just say start with stories.
So what I'm hearing you say is most people want to know, tell me how many times a week to post, how many pieces of content to create, but you're actually addressing the mental barriers that keep people from even getting that far. So we think we want those answers. And then once I know that answer, then I'll go build it. Mm. But you're saying, like, who cares?
Yeah. Because
who cares about that? Just go, just start.
Yeah. It's actually more about you and self-discovery.
Yeah.
So in a very selflessly selfish way, if you want to be better, you only do that through repetition. And I always like to say that this is the least known you'll ever be. So like, now's the time to actually get those kinks out of the way. It is literally impossible to have all the information you need to do something the right way the first time. Literally impossible. And so that's why I say just start with what you know. That's why one of my things that I help that really just unlocks the consistency thing is, instead of trying to make content, just be the content. Mm-hmm. And so when I say just record what you're actually doing. So we're talking about young entrepreneurs. Well, if you're a real estate agent, that means you're probably actually on the phone with people.
Right.
I would imagine. If you're a young pastor, you're probably meeting people for coffee, or people are coming to the offices, or like those things are happening because you have a pulse and you go to work.
Yep.
It's just not being shown. And like, that's just like step one, is that you are who you say you are online.
Yeah.
But the issue is if you are a consistent human being in person, man of your word, women of your word, but online you have inconsistencies, that communicates. Like, that is your brand is you're inconsistent.
Right.
And so that's why I'm just like, just film whatever thing you're doing. This is why you can hire a teenager. Like, hey, stop working at Dutch Bros.
Right.
How much you make? They're like $100 a week. I'll pay you $200 a week.
Right.
Just follow me around with a smartphone, and you'd be surprised what's going to come from that. Especially because that kind of content, again, AI can't do. So that's why I like the whole be the content thing is like, what are you already doing? And then there's just like the talking about what just happened. Hey, I just had a coffee meeting. Hey, we just closed on this house, and the buyer, when they first came, they thought they didn't have enough savings. But I told them, like, the down payment's actually nowhere near your savings account.
Yeah.
And that's a real life story that actually happened. Now you're building trust, and you're not talking about something you don't know. You're literally talking about what it is you do, which is where confidence comes from. Confidence comes from competence. And so if you're talking about what it is you do know, you will appear and sound more confident.
Right. Which you should.
Which you should, yeah.
That should be normal.
Right.
That's so valuable. Who inspires you in this way right now?
Yeah, in regards to
just doing the work.
Doing the work. Dude, in this space, we both know him. His name's Neil Dingra.
Love Neil.
I think it's very powerful to assess the conversations you have every day. If you don't like where you are right now, it's probably a result of the consistent conversations you're currently having. I found if you just changed your conversations, you can actually change your life. And just because
That's so
I'm
good.
sharing a building with somebody who is a lot older than me, a lot wiser than me, dude, every conversation we talk about has to do with how to make more money, how to fix this bottleneck, how to come up with this new offer, that's the constant conversation. So, I mean, I love Neil for everything he's built and what he's building and who he is as a person.
I would say also, I mean, I started following him. I found him when he had like 2,500 followers. In context, like on Instagram, I think he's well over 200 at
Dang,
this
how
point.
cool would it be if you could bet on people? You could,
Yeah.
if you could bet on people's brands
Yep.
and like, dude, this guy's gonna be
I'll buy
big.
some stock in that
Yeah,
guy.
right.
I'll buy some stock in him.
Hey, that might be a thing one of these days.
Oh, I think it absolutely will. I think there's people that do that. But with Neil, I think one of the biggest things that I've watched him do besides just start, which feels like a duh thing, but the truth is most of you are not doing that.
Right.
So start, but two is I think he might be one of the most consistent people that I've ever met. So he's having the right conversations. He's changing the conversation. He's thinking about these things, but he's so consistent at all of that. And I think if you were to go back and maybe even in your own brand and what you've built, like you don't just turn the lights on and you're like, boom. There was probably seasons where you put out a ton of content that was valuable, that was wise, that was helpful, that was useful, but nobody ever saw it. And there's some dark moments before you kind of get to the good moments. Has it been that way for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm learning is not everyone's watching every piece of content, which I think we think that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
Like even if you have 10,000 followers, you think all 10,000 are going to watch that piece of content.
I post a picture of my girls and I'm assuming everybody gets to see my life and love it.
Which, by the way, when you post a picture of your girls, though, that's probably the most reach you're going to get.
It's very accurate.
And so being good at being repetitive, I'm finding it's crazy because like there's something that tells me like you keep saying that or you said that before, or you said that before, you said that before. But that's why you need to be sold out to your own message.
Keep going.
Yeah. And saying the same thing constantly, saying the same thing differently. Something I learned from Neil was great marketers don't say 1,000 different things 1,000 different ways. They say one thing 1,000 different ways.
Oof.
And so, yeah, Neil would be one of them. I think somebody that, we're talking about earlier about having almost like permission or an example of doing something you feel like is in your heart. Many times we're looking for an example. I think Myron Golden over the last couple of years showed me you could be unapologetically a man of God in business, teaching biblical principles, regardless who listens. And it's almost like, I think in so many ways you want to be strategic with that, but the strategy is actually going fully you.
Yeah.
And then when you do that, it looks strategic.
I would look at somebody like Myron at, how old is he? 62?
I think he's like 64.
64. And I'd say when I watch his content, love his content. I look at him and I go, there's somebody who has found his lane. There's somebody who's found sort of their lane of genius. Even at 64, I think that's brilliant. I would say I feel the same way about you because I've known you for a while now. I've watched your journey from Think Media to Church Days, and it seems like from the outside looking in that Omar has officially found his lane. Would you say, like on a scale of 1 to 10, that's accurate? Like where are you at?
Yeah.
If I were to go, hey, 1 to 10. In your lane, where do you sit on that?
You know what's
scale?
crazy? To answer your question, scale of 1 to 10. Right now, I do feel like I'm at like 8, 9, 10. But 3.5 years ago, it was a 3. And it's because personally at that time, I did not have an example. And so I was in a predicament. And that was, I felt limited at the idea of being in ministry at a very high level, but being a creator and in business at a very high level. Personally, I don't know if I saw that. Everyone I saw that was in ministry at a high level and did something creatively at a high level were worship leaders who like recorded music, or you were the pastor is the lead pastor, the wife is the worship leader, and there's this what I like to call a track of tradition. We see it, a quintessential like picture of something.
Right.
Now, I had a conversation with a friend. Her name was Heather Torres, and I literally remember where I was. I was at the Link. We were doing a meetup, and I was just talking with her. I was like, dude, Heather, you know, it's tough because like I know I have a call on my life to be a shepherd and to teach the word of God, but like I make videos. I had like, that's weird. I don't think people are going to respect me as a minister or respect me as a teacher if I'm out here making videos. And I feel like I need to choose one. And then literally the sentence that like broke everything off of me, she said, Omar, for you, it's both. And it was like, you know, it was just like something fell. For you, it's both. Do both. And although I didn't have the example, I just fully committed to doing both. And now people are seeing me as an example of doing both. And I actually think most callings are dual than singular. You know, you think about like a one track calling, I don't know is how God works. I think he's too nuanced in the human experience. And one picture that I saw on my phone screen that affirmed the thing that my friend Heather told me was, I remember I preached a Sunday. It was I think it might've been my first Sunday that I preached a sermon, or a second. And then that Monday, we released a video I made for Think Media, right? And when I opened up my homepage, it was like my sermon video, and then underneath it was like my tech video editing tutorial. And I saw on my screen, I was like, this is the both, which is very interesting because I don't know who.
Well, I think, first of all, you're hitting to the core of like my passion for this conversation within the Talents brand and the mission. I'm somebody, I think maybe you and I are rare in that way. Mm-hmm. I'm somebody who got into business at a young age, had mentors in my life that did help me understand stewardship and what it meant to like put one foot in front of the other and build things. My drive was money. So I built to make money in those years. And every time I had a goal, like my first goal was like, I wanted to make $100,000. So and I think I gave myself 4 years to do it. I'm like, I have 4 years to make $100,000. I think I made it in like 8 months. And then I was like, oh, I want to make 200. And I was like, oh, then you make 200. I want to make 400. And I realized from 20 to 25, I blew away every goal that I had set from 20 to 25. At 25, I'm filling out a financial document. You know, they like to find out like your net worth for a project I was buying. And as I'm filling it out for the first time, I'm like, you know, you put in all of your assets and liabilities and you're subtracting everything. And as I got done and wrote the final number, I had like surpassed that $1 million net worth, like by just like a little margin. And I remember sitting there going like, this doesn't feel how I thought it would feel. So then I swung hardcore to like, I don't want my life to be about money. I want my life to be about people. So then I went hardcore into ministry full time, became a youth pastor, and slowly pivoted from like business to ministry, that whole thing. And I say all this to you because where I landed like over the last 20 years was I'm supposed to do both. I'm absolutely called to do both. And I actually think that's important for people to hear, because I actually think people get stuck. One of my business partners, we were business partners and pastors together. He called me when I was having some conversations, because I was like, man, I don't know. I love this, but I'm like still kind of missing business now that I'm in full-time ministry. And he said, Cody, he said, I think I think there's certain people that are just wired to have one foot in business and one foot in ministry. And there's really no example of that. So it feels like it's wrong. He goes, but that's who you are. And he goes, and when you're only doing one, you're overcharged in that area, and you're missing a component and a part of who you are.
Right.
You know, that was one of the most freeing things for me to hear as like a young entrepreneur, was like, you can do both.
Right.
They're both a calling. They're both a lane. Like, it's okay. You can do it. And, I think within the faith, the Christian world, I believe in the local church deeply. I love the local church. I want to support, uplift, resource the local church. But we can make the church like our place of faith, and we separate it from our place of work. And statistically speaking, like 99% of people will never preach behind a pulpit.
Right.
So then the question is, like, what does God put in your hands outside the four walls of the church to make an impact?
Right.
How do you juggle that now?
Yeah.
Because you've been a pastor, right? Like full time?
It's kind of like, I guess what would the way be? I mean, I wouldn't be full time in the offices and stuff. I've been a part of City Light from a community pastor dynamic, a legacy pastor dynamic, preaching a handful of times a year, teaching a Bible class. I'm Pastor Omar on Sundays. I'm Pastor Omar during the week. And to many other people, like, I am Omar El-Khatri, but it's never been like full time. But when I was in full time ministry, I was not as effective as I was not being in full time ministry. And you probably know what that looks like and means. But my reason for building a highly profitable business is because of the burden I have for the local church. And so I that's why I'm like, why I make a lot of money. I mean, when people ask me for money to give to other organizations, my thing is like, if it doesn't have to do with the local church, I don't feel a burden to help. Even evangelism, I don't really have a burden for evangelism. Because I believe in the church and what the church is and what the church is doing for the kingdom, and even just Jesus, my conviction on like Paul's letters, like for it is by grace, Ephesians 2:8, for it is by grace you've been saved. He's not talking to an individual, it's like we've been saved, and Jesus died for the church. And it sounds really weird, but he didn't die for me. Like, he died for the church and the sins of the world, and so all that to say, that's why I'm like, I want to make as much money as possible.
100%. Can people stay, just in the context of this conversation, we're talking about like sort of working business ministry, like that's the tension, the struggle of which one leads, which one's prioritized, understanding that like maybe that gift that's on your life outside the four walls of the church is what God's going to use to actually create impact in this world and meaning, in your life. Can we stay in a lane too long?
Yeah, for sure. Because God wants to take us somewhere, and we don't always know where that is, and I definitely do think we could be in a place too long. I think people jump off too quick too. So I would rather, some guy was praying about moving to Vegas and working here from Texas. Like, he lived in Fort Worth, a young dude with a wife, and his wife was pregnant. He's like, yeah, man, I'm fasting and really seeing. And I don't know, I was just like, I'd rather move where something is going to make me in a position that puts a demand on God and find out I missed him than stay somewhere because it was safe. And some people will probably disagree with that. I've stayed longer than I should have in certain seasons, in certain organizations and things like that. And then it's like, it becomes I feel like you get kicked off the cliff at that point.
100%. What do you why do we stay too long?
Yeah, because it's what we know. But that internal feeling that you're frustrated for no reason. That I would say you're probably hitting a lid wherever you are. You're hitting a lid. God has more for you, has something, and it always is so clear when you look back. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, I stayed that long or what have you. But it requires both. You need faith to stay. You also need faith to leave. But yeah, I think we get so caught up in what things look like. And that's the whole thing of the track of tradition or the way it should be. Even if you're in the position of wanting to start something, you have a way in your mind you see this starting,
right?
Where it's like if you are doing something fairly new, maybe something you've literally never seen before, how do you have a way it's supposed to be done in your mind,
right?
Like it's, and so I think that's why a lot of people stay stuck is because we just don't have like something to compare it to. But that's why there is nothing that replaces doing.
Yeah,
just go and do.
The work needs doing.
I like to say doing leads to discovery. It leads to discovery because it's in, I don't know if you've ever preached a sermon and you've gotten more revelation after you preached it.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes, it's so crazy.
And you're like, shoot, how did I miss that?
Yep.
But you got the revelation because you put the message out there, and then God gave you something as a result of the doing. And so, yeah, I mean, I do think people stay longer than they need to. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's the journey with God. I'm not the one to say God told me. I'm the one who says, I feel like the Holy Spirit is saying, because I could be wrong.
Yep.
I always want to be cautious about those things. But if you live a life of discipline, spiritual discipline, where you have your consistent devotional, like I consider myself a spiritual leader, and a spiritual leader is simply someone who carries the presence of God. That's the only difference. And I know that, and that people feel that when they walk into the space. They feel that when we put on events. They feel that in the content. They feel that but it's because the Holy Spirit is alive and well. And I like resting on that, which is why I don't over prepare things. Like even to getting to this point, I'm just like, let's freaking go. Like the person you are is the person that's coming out.
Just hit record.
Yeah. Because they say a prepared messenger is better than a prepared message. And if I'm doing the things when no one's watching, that when it comes time for people to see, they're going to see the fruit of what's being done in the dark. And, it's the part of my life that people don't really see. And the part of my life I don't really put out there. Yeah. I don't always show, my devotional time. I don't really give too much insight on those things, but I am a byproduct of consistent church attendance, being plugged into a community, submitted to spiritual authority, and having a daily walk and honoring my wife and providing for my family.
I would actually argue, you mentioned a few minutes ago, I wouldn't consider myself like an evangelist. And I actually think you're one of the greatest evangelists because you let your life live your faith out. Mm-hmm. People see the difference in you, not because of how hard you're saying it at them, but because they just see your behavior, your posture, the way you treat people around you, the way that you carry yourself with a certain level of conviction. And I actually think that's pretty underrated. I really do. I actually think the fruit the fruit and the people around you that you're having an impact on is probably more significant than you know, just by you just living your life
Thank you.
and being who you're supposed to be. Can we talk about money?
Please.
I want to talk about money.
I don't love money. I love talking about money.
I love talking about money. So some context here that I think is like really important. You've gone from making like not crazy money to like millions in a year. For you, what changed first? Like the internal identity or your income?
Well, I guess when I think about the journey of my prosperity, I guess we could call it, which I said that just to trigger people. I remember making $34,000 full-time W-2 at a church I was working out here as a creative director. God put something on my heart. It was an accessories brand where I started making dog tags and with a vintage World War II dog tag machine. It was really cool. It was called Grace Brand. It was evangelistic in nature because it was a conversation starter and stuff like that.
The message behind it, yeah.
Yeah, so I actually left that job to pursue that, and then a couple months in, it didn't really kind of like take off. I was also ignorant as an entrepreneur, and started making videos. And I started had a small agency where I was starting to help other small businesses, other churches in town. And it was cool because I owned my own time. And I think that I had a client that did lash extensions.
Mm-hmm.
And I, by the grace of God and through skill, blew up their business from $15,000 a month in revenue online to $1 million a month in revenue online. And with no commission whatsoever connected to it. Again, ignorance.
Here you go.
So
slap on the back.
But proof is proof. And I realized I had something, then reconnected with Sean. So from, 34K in 2016 and had my first 6-figure year in 2019. Didn't know tax game, didn't know business structure. So I always like to say the year I made the most money was the year I became the most broke, because we had a gnarly savings, but because we didn't have a
Taxes.
Correct structure, I got taxed on all of it. And because of COVID, I had to, push back the thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I would be in that 150 to 220 mark for a couple years. And then everything changed when I crossed paths with Myron Golden, and his whole philosophy was you can actually make hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, in a single day. And that sounds ridiculous when you hear it, but I'm seeing people doing it that I am, in my mind, better than or smarter than or I have more known than, as there's a disconnect, bro. And I love Myron for this, because he says things that jar your traditional way of thinking. He says, we've been told to beware of the get rich quick scheme, but nobody said beware of the stay broke for the rest of your life scheme. Why?
Oh my gosh, I love that.
If we could make money faster, we could enjoy it with people we love longer. The sooner you get the breakthrough, the sooner you take the action, the sooner you make the money, the longer you get to enjoy it. And so I saw how to build a business around the concept, number one, of one to many. Everything I do in business is one to many. I don't need a sales team, because I don't do one-on-one sales. I do one to many selling. The YouTube channel, it's a one-to-many communication style. My teaching and my courses and my challenges, they're one-to-many. And then my programs, they're one-to-many. So that alone helped me get time back. I know people that are caught up in a business that only thrives on one-on-one conversations, and then one-on-one fulfillment, and then one-on-one this, that, and the other, and that's why you burn out,
I love that Myron helped you gain some of that inside perspective. But if you were to step back walking into that relationship with Myron. You know, Dave Ramsey says money is 80% emotional, 20% math. A lot of times we want to focus on the 20%, which is really the practicals and the fundamentals. But I'm realizing the more people I work with, none of that works because they've never dealt with the 80% emotional.
Dang.
So you walk into, it's what I call your money story. It's a process that I walk people through. It's profound. It's emotional. It's revealing in some of the deepest ways of people's lives. I've had people that are in their, late 50s, just in tears, realizing like I've lived my entire adult life with a certain way of thinking that wasn't accurate. And now they're seeing that truth for the first time in their 50s. It's powerful.
Yeah. No, so like something that I'm so glad that happened is when I got saved at 21, I was making $250 every 2 weeks as a college student working at a rec center. And that's the amount I learned to tithe from. I enjoyed tithing so much that when I started doing resell, I would resell sneakers and resell iPhones that I buy from Craigslist and stuff. I would tithe on the gross. It was just, the math wasn't mathing when it came to the tithe actually. But it was working.
Why did you do that?
Well, I think Benny Perez did a really good job at, sharing like the promise of what God would do with the tither, and it is an immediate, response you get from God. And then like, the few times where me and Amanda we did offerings and like gave to building campaigns. And then it's like, oh, the Holy Spirit is pretty, if you want to hear the Holy Spirit, he's usually telling you to give money away, And so I had friends who would just tell me, yeah, man, this is happening and this is happening, or yeah, we have to end our lease on our apartment. And like, it's almost like the Holy Spirit's just like, give it, which broke something off me from the standpoint of generosity. And I'm telling the story because I thought that getting me to be a generous human being was the goal, and it wasn't where it ended. So,
which is where most people are just trying to get. So that wasn't it. Okay,
that was not it.
Go ahead.
And because the Bible says you can't serve two masters, how do you know that you're serving money? Well, it makes you emotional. It makes you emotional to make it. It makes you emotional to lose it. It makes you emotional. It stresses you out. Like I say, money is lording over you if it stresses you out in any capacity, whether you make it or lose it. I didn't realize money still had lordship over me when I lost $100,000 to a Ponzi scheme. So this is actually this is 2023 summer. I go golfing with a friend who's a financial advisor who subscribes to Dave Ramsey. And I was telling him, he's like, dude, I was like, bro, I have $100,000 I want to do something with. I just want to like multiply it. That's a good desire. It's not like, I don't believe that's from the devil.
Sure.
I want to grow this 100K, but I didn't have a plan for it. And he's like, dude, at the end of the round, he's like, if you're really serious, like I've been a part of this fund, this hydrogen plant fund.
Uh-oh.
And he's like, it's been 3 rounds and it do 20% in 6 months. You could pull out or you can roll it in. He's like, I've been rolling it in. I was like, this sounds awesome. I trust you. I trust your friend. Me and Amanda prayed about it. And then we sent the 100K and it's like in 6 months, we'll get back 120K. Sounds good. And long story short or long, come August, like October is supposed to be the payout month. Come August, we just start seeing weird emails. And there are over 300 plus investors in this thing. $15 million has been brought in, and it just is not looking good, And it was for a couple weeks I was very uneasy, and those things were, or I guess we could use the word emotional. I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. Telling Jabin, my pastor, like, hey, you could like remove me off the pastoral team, bro. Like, I can't believe I'm that bad of a steward, And And he's like, what did you invest in? And it's like the number one rule of investing, invest in what it is you know. I don't know nothing about hydrogen, bro. So they pulled the rug out from under us. But bro, I lost $100,000 to a Ponzi scheme. Now, I realized something after losing $100,000.
Uh-huh.
I realized after losing $100,000 to a Ponzi scheme that we still put food on the table. The mortgage was still being paid. I had a pulse. My family had a pulse. We still went on trips. And that's when I got to where God wanted me to get to when it came to money. And that was that there's no amount of money that's a lot of money.
Mm.
If something feels like it's a lot of money to you, that means you're going to have an emotion connected to it. And when I lost $100,000, but nothing changed in my life, I realized $100,000 isn't a lot of money. And that broke something off of me. Even though I was tithing for over a decade, even though we were giving generous in offerings and trusting God with sacrificial offerings and things like that, I still felt like when I lost it, I lost sleep. If you're losing sleep over money, money is mastering you.
Yeah.
It literally is playing Pinocchio with your emotions. And so now, fast forward, we had a $722,000 day in September, and Art is like, dude, and I'm just like, dude, sweet.
Yeah.
It's like, it's easy for you to say, Omar, it's a lot of money, but it doesn't move me. Even down to the mistakes. There was a Zoom call we put $20,000 in ads for, and it's always my fault. It's always our fault.
Says the leader.
Yeah. Somebody forgot to open up the Zoom room to a higher capacity. So I'm like delivering on the Zoom call, and it's capped at 500 perfect. The number is 500 perfect. I've never seen that before.
Right. So you knew
like,
something wrong.
I was like, I thought there was 2,000 people that signed up for this thing. Yeah. Somebody forgot to turn on the thing. In my world, that could have been that probably is a 6-figure mistake.
That was a significant mistake.
Yeah. I wish there was a camera on me when that happened, because I would have loved the world to have seen my reaction to it, and there was no reaction. Unfazed. Now, that's why people pay us, because we mess up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, bro, I could sit here and tell you stories as well.
What's that you're 100K to a Ponzi scheme story?
Man,
it always makes me feel better, by the way. I love asking, like, what was your biggest loss? So I feel better about myself.
Well, I'll have losses on both sides. I mean, I invested at one point. There was these guys that were moving luxury cars that were essentially the bank was taking back from, like, the whole story. It's like car dealerships are not selling cars. They financed themselves, so the banks take them back if they have a buyer. So my guy was a buyer who had he was the buyer who would then resell them in, like, Canada and Germany and all these different places. They came to me and they're like, hey, do you want in on this? And I'm like, well, produce I don't know, like, I just picked a car. Produce a 3 Series BMW. And they're like, okay, like, how much could you get me one? Like a pretty new one. And they're like, and it was like 50% of, like, retail. Mm-hmm. Within 2 weeks, it was in my driveway. And I was like, done. I now have this car, So I move in, and every month it's like these great returns and everything's moving. And all of a sudden, the guy that's running it is, like, MIA. Turns out he's hiding in some hotel in, like, Astoria, Oregon. Leads the police on, like, a highway, like something you'd see on, like, Cops. Mm-hmm. Ends up in jail, the whole thing. And yeah, man, we lost everything that we'd put into that. For me, I guess it was the same. I was like, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And I don't think everybody has to go through that. I hope people don't. But I do think that a lot of times we will overlook due diligence because the return just is too good. So we see the return. We're like, all right,
for sure.
This is great. So I'm not going to ask questions. You said you prayed about that. I think I prayed about that.
Yeah.
You know, like felt peace about that. So like, where does God sit in all this is a funny, because people talk about that all the time. Like, oh, we really, you know, we prayed, we felt good about it. And then it didn't work. Like, how do we respond to that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. But that's why I believe like the power of assigning seasons, or I would say this, like in Genesis, God tells Adam I think his first job was to name the creatures.
Yeah.
Like you could name this whatever you want to name it. And we still have that power today. We could name that season whatever we want to name it, and or see it or categorize it however we want. And it's the power of naming things. And I name that loss as a lesson, and it also created a tolerance which wouldn't have happened otherwise. And I don't think everyone needs to have like a loss like that.
No.
But and I do say but, not and. I say but there needs to be something in your life that shows you that money doesn't have as much power as you think it does. Because that's why we're doing what we're doing.
So it actually feels like what I'm hearing you say is that God started working with you in the conversation of money at actually a pretty young age, like early adulthood. So like when you moved into, you know, Myron, he helped you. What mindsets did he help you shift? Because it feels like you were already actually pretty far along in a healthy relationship. Like money didn't have you, money didn't own you.
Right.
So what switched then? If you already had a healthy relationship with money, what?
Yeah, it was the revelation of the access I have to abundance. So something he says is, you don't lack abundance. You lack awareness of the access you have to abundance. So like ignorance is the cost we're all paying right now. The cost of what it is we don't know is always going to be the most expensive thing that we're paying.
So how did that manifest itself in what you were doing?
Yeah.
So that's a mindset issue.
100.
A shift, which is awesome. Some people hear that kind of stuff and they're like, what kind of voodoo are you trying to tell me? Like, I just got to think about it and, you know, it'll all be good. But you obviously took something that to some people can feel like air.
Right.
Like, I don't know how to grab a hold of that. You grabbed a hold of it. How? How did you grab a hold of it? How did that manifest itself?
Well, I grabbed a hold of it by implementing what he teaches, which is simply have a one-to-many educational experience, whether in person or virtual, and then give an offer at the end. That was essentially it. So the way I saw that is...
But how did that actually... So that's you're talking about a business system or business structure.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like, that feels like I don't know, this is a good model to go after your business, but you did it in the name of income.
Mm-hmm.
What was that shift? Like, what was the...
Use a different word than shift.
Shift, yeah.
Like, what was the shift?
What was the shift? I think I think we separate the two. We're like, okay, like when we're talking about like manifestations,
Okay.
like I'm going to sit here and think about, you know, I'm going to wake up every morning and go, I am wealthy. I am, you know, like I'm good enough. I'm valuable. And that's not what you're saying at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll say that the biggest shift, I think the biggest shift was investing in myself. A lot of, I invested in myself through coaching pretty much double what I was being paid as a W-2 employee, which makes no sense. It was a $55,000 coaching program, which sounds ridiculous. And it is. That's why it sounds ridiculous. Mm-hmm. However, I found that our purchases test our beliefs and our philosophy. And so what that investment in myself did is it took me and Amanda's, our relationship, to a whole nother level of trust. Because the spouse objection, right? Hey babe, how can we do this? She says, we could take a loan out of our house. We could
Dang.
so that's Amanda believing,
Getting on board
in
with
what God's put in my heart and trusting me. So that's happening. So that's happening in that investment in ourselves. And then it's like getting around a room of people who then, kind of going back to what we talked to, the conversations are just different in rooms like this. I found that real life change doesn't happen in big rooms. They happen in small rooms.
100%.
And there's something to say about intimate, small rooms where people have a specific direction they're going, and the things that they've done, their lessons and mistakes they've made. I'm always asking people, what's the biggest loss you've ever made? Please tell me it's more than $100,000. You know? But I would say that was the shift. The shift was investing in myself. I thought I was investing in myself by reading my Bible every day, although that is an investment in self. But if the Bible says that where your treasure is, there your heart is also, that when you put your money in something for you to become more, you'll pay attention to it more. Like, the information is out there. Whatever you want, you could find on YouTube with ChatGPT. But for you to pay attention to the information is going to cost you. And most people, I don't gatekeep anything. So I will tell you what I got from paying Myron $110,000 in a couple years' time. I'll tell you what I learned from paying this company over $200,000 in the last couple of years. What they taught me about online selling and online presentations. Like, I could tell you all these things. It doesn't matter because of the context of how you're consuming the content is casual. The reason why I don't put a gatekeep filter on my content is because I don't control the context you're consuming my content in. If you are a stay-at-home mom and you are listening to my delivery of whatever podcast, how to make your first $10,000 a month, the kids are running around, you're making eggs, you got this one nugget out of this whole presentation. But people could pay me $25,000, come to a workshop here in Vegas, I will say the same thing. And they will get something more, they will get more out of it. Are they getting more out of it because I'm saying something different? Or are they getting more out of it because they have more invested into the information that's being said? And I love this because God gave us the scriptures, which is the infallible word of God. If anyone adds or takes away from it, it's not of God. They are not of God. But have you read the same scripture multiple times and gotten different revelation? Mm-hmm. It's because it's living and active, but it's also because you changed. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I'm, it just made me pay attention to the plays to run and, pay attention to the things to change.
That's so cool. I think one of the things I try to help people with is just this idea of, like, you have to practice generosity. Like, for most people, that thing that you're talking about where it's like the money that pulls on your heart and you feel that, and that's like, it's like, you can have anything, God, but just don't touch this area of my life. Like, let me control this piece, which, you're talking about, like, what it really reveals our heart. Mm-hmm. Right. I think practicing generosity is one of the most fundamental ways you can break through that, because what is practicing generosity? It's like just doing the thing, like getting up and going, all right, like, I'm going to pay for this guy Starbucks today, or I'm going to bless this single mom, or but you start thinking that way, and it unlocks something. I had a business owner go through my Good Money Moves course, and in there we talk about generosity, we talk about tithing. Like, it's not like the course isn't built for that, but that's definitely something that we address. And this lady, she'd never tithed before, and she was so challenged through the content in the scripture to go, like, wow, I've never viewed it this way. It's like everything is God's and I'm just giving back what he already gave me. Like, mind blown, right? Like, for some people that's fundamental, but she started tithing the gross on her business. In the
Wow.
first month, her business grew by 10%. So the second month, she was like, wow. And she was just so encouraged. And she's like, God, I'm so grateful. So she gave 20% the next month. The next month, her business grew by 20%. The third month, she was like, I'm just so grateful. She gave 30% of her gross in her business. The next month, her business grew by 30%. This kept happening 5 months in a row to 50%. And all of a sudden, she's like, I'm going to give 50% now. My business is going to grow 50%. So she comes to me, she's telling me this journey. And then all of a sudden at month 6, she's like, Cody, it all fell apart. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, I started giving like over 50% because I was like, this is incredible. And like my business dropped by 30%. I didn't grow, I shrunk. And I go, what changed? And she said, my heart. She said, when I started giving, I was just grateful to give.
Mm-hmm.
There was just a heart of giving back. She's like, and then all of a sudden around month 4 or 5, my heart started to shift and I started to get strategic with my giving in the sense of, oh, if I give this,
It became a game.
then this will happen. And I think so many of us, that's how we treat generosity in or tithing in this conversation, where it's really, no, this is like everything I have is from God. This is something I'm giving back. That shift is everything. It feels like you learned that at such a young age. You learned how to practice generosity at a young age. Okay, so now you're making money.
Which, by the way, I want to say something about the tithe. Going back to the whole concept that like you could be reading the same thing or have the same information. Isn't it interesting in church how like everyone hears the same sermon, but the fruit of what's being heard is different across the board? And
Absolutely.
I would argue that one of the reasons you want and should tithe is not just because God told us we should and because there's promise of blessing, sure, but you should do it just so you can pay attention more. Like if you want the fruit, if you want your soil to be fertile and you want to receive the most out of the house you feel called to and the person that you're called to be under, tithing does that. It's very rare that tithers get the most offended. It's because they're too invested to get them, So I think something about there with that tithe, but that's true. Like, I mean, if you start playing the game, it goes from being generosity to playing a game.
This lady literally watched the blessing of God through just her generous heart and then her pivot. And I appreciated that she was self-aware enough to like recognize it and then actually be honest about it. I don't think most people are willing to be honest about that. I think money hits a certain level of ego and pride as well. I feel like money is such an important conversation because it is the one thing in our lives that will really show you where you're at.
Yes.
We can hide a lot of areas of our lives and get by. Like you can get by on your charisma or you can get by on some of your giftings and people look from outside going, Omar seems together. But when you start looking at the way people manage money, handle money, generosity, this entire conversation, it reveals the deeper truth of where you're at. And I think in this conversation, self-awareness is probably one of the most missed opportunities because we tend to want to like hide this part of our lives. Do you feel like on the other side of making the most money you've ever made, how are you like practically like budgeting your money now? Like, how are you thinking about your money now? Like, what has changed in that vantage point? Because I think a lot of people think, well, if I get this amount, then I can do this.
Yeah.
If I reach this, pinnacle, then all of these things I want to go after, I'm going to be able to go after. And it's that carrot on the horse track that you're never going to catch.
Right. I've found that business single-handedly is the greatest accelerator of wealth. You can get wealthy faster because you have a business. And that's simply because many times business sits outside of time. You're not trading time for money, you're trading value for money. And you can make money a lot faster because you have a business. But I believe the first game you need to master is you need to master how to make money. Like, I feel like my skill sets and my knowledge sits outside of a market, recession or non-recession. Like, I'm not threatened because there's too much creativity. The Holy Spirit is way too creative, and I'm a tither. Like there's just so many things as to why I actually sit outside of whatever's happening in the market. But when you learn how to make money and you've gotten that, like, boom, I know how to make money. You can run ads, leads to this, has an offer, boom, money made. The next step is to actually, how do you preserve it and multiply it, right? And that's like I don't want people to get so caught up in that before they actually learn how to make it, though. And I think them skipping the step on how to just make it, it actually becomes a distraction trying to preserve money that's not even made yet. So where we're at now is I'm trying to pay zero in taxes based on what I've learned because of my ignorance. The first year I made the most amount of money was the first year I became the most broke. I was like, that's never going to happen again. I'm not going to allow somebody else's ignorance that I'm paying, which is something if I'm paying you to do something, please be better than me at it. Like, tell me something I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm asking this lady who's doing our taxes. I was like, how do people not pay taxes? She's like, no, you have to pay taxes. I don't know about that, sis.
That's the wrong CPA.
Yeah, right. Well, exactly. CPA.
Yeah.
You don't want a CPA, you want a tax strategist.
Yeah.
And I'm learning there's a difference. But how we are preserving and multiplying our wealth is investing in real estate. We have 2 rental properties right now. One's a short-term rental, one's a long-term rental. Actually, somebody that works for me rents the long-term rental, so I pay them to work for me, and they pay me back, which is cool.
I love that.
And we've run cost seg studies on these houses. So in this year, we will be able to, take down our bill to zero, which is sweet. And then, so real estate's a big thing. Paying our kids about $14,000 a month tax-free, and we got the Augusta rule, paying ourselves. We have actually just reinvesting into the business through ad spend and like equipment. I don't like sparing any expense because I don't want to buy things twice because I'm realizing it's more expensive to do so.
Yeah.
But
just for those watching, just to be really clear, some people are watching this and you're hearing like, wait, you're trying to avoid paying taxes. It's like, no. You actually need to look at the IRS tax code differently.
Yeah.
Like the tax code is actually a big book full of ways to not pay taxes.
Yeah.
It's there's all of these legal strategies, legal tactics, legal opportunities.
I think people don't see the IRS from a standpoint of why do they give you tax breaks to begin with. It's because when you're a contributing citizen to move the country forward, and there is 2 things that do that. That is creating jobs, that moves the country forward, and that's putting people in homes, that moves the country forward. If you are responsible for those 2 things, they actually become your partner. Like, let's partner in that. We want the prosperity of this country. Yeah. So this is why there are what we call tax breaks. It's just in marketing and people say avoiding taxes, when reality, I see it like, oh yeah, the IRS actually says I should do it.
They encourage it.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the most important things that people sit on is they rely on somebody else who's not as far along as they are to give them advice that sets them up to pay the most taxes.
Right.
And it's actually so easy.
Yeah.
If you really are, you don't even have to spend that much time. You find the right people, but it's not that hard.
Right. And I will say, like, state dependent, because there are some states that are like whack to live in, but there you go. There's the plan. There are states that you shouldn't live in. Move to Montana, Las Vegas, stay away from California, sorry.
Oh man, come on.
But no, like, the information's out there, but it's the ignorance as to why people are having to write checks. It's so funny. Like, when I see people who are okay with it, I have a friend he was actually in the program, and he was like, yeah, dude, I just see it as, trade this 70 cents for trade 30 cents for 70 cents. That's how I see it. I was like, I just see it as here's $1.
Yeah.
Like take the dollar.
How
dude.
about we just see it as $1?
Yeah.
Why don't we just see it for what it is?
But then Omar, where do you pay? Well, I'll just be very clear. When I say we pay to zero tax, I mean the business pays zero taxes.
Yeah.
I pay taxes on my salary. I
Yep.
pay taxes on the salary of my employees. And so, yeah, there is a level of like 100% evasion isn't, I actually don't think it actually works. It's impossible, but, well, maybe it's not impossible, but I'm not willing to go that far.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like when I say pay zero in taxes, there is context to that phrase.
Yep. All right. I want to do,
Dude, that alone was worth the combo. Hopefully you got this far, listener or watcher.
absolutely. And actually don't just sit on it, use it.
Mm-hmm.
These are truth bombs. These are gold bombs that will absolutely help you. I want to just end with,
Dude, don't use that phrase, bro.
what?
I mean, we can include this,
What?
but when you use the word as we wrap up, or I just want to end, you're giving permission to the consumer to check out mentally.
Well,
But
if you're still listening, you don't want to check out right now because this will be the best 5 minutes of your life. Period. That's what I meant to say.
That's the
See, you're
creator
watching
in me.
this podcast, and this conversation, this topic, this subject is so important to me. It's what's changed my life. It's what's given me opportunities. It's what pulled us out of poverty.
Yeah, dude. What's his name?
All of those things. But
You know who Dan Fleischman is?
yeah,
He said something that he said
he's the guy. To me, he's the guy that has a zoo. That's the guy
fair
he
to
is
say.
to me.
No, he said something once at Neil's event, actually 3 years ago. He said, and he has like the podcast Money Mondays, but he says, we were raised to believe that it was rude to talk about money. And he said, I believe it's rude to not talk about money. Like we are doing our kids a disservice by not talking about money.
These are conversations we need to have.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. And so,
Yeah, so much of that is why I'm doing this.
right.
I was just going to say, but while we're doing this, Omar is also coaching me through how to do this because the dude knows how to make crispy content better than just about anybody I know.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate
Really,
that.
for reals. No, this conversation needs to happen. I want to ask you one more thought around money. Gosh, it was so good and I just lost it.
It'll come.
I believe one of the biggest reasons financial literacy, stewardship, these conversations we're having matter is because they amplify the actual gifts and talents on your life. How has money allowed you to use your gifts at another level?
It's really good. The first thing that comes to mind is by paying other people. Like when I think about the power of creating something from our imagination that somebody can actually physically live in and under and then be blessed and compensated by it. This is what makes me think that business is a God idea, because there are people are tithers, and then there are people who create tithers. And I believe that God uses kingdom entrepreneurs to create tithers. All money that's given to a local church or an organization, a nonprofit or whatever, it comes from enterprise. That's where it came from. It came from somebody's imagination who had the faith to put something in action, create something that people can live inside of and experience life in and be compensated for. And I think that's like, when I think about being able to pay people that are good at something I'm not good at so that I could focus on things that I'm good at, which I believe I'm really good at: coaching, teaching, and creating. I'm actually okay to not outsource certain things. I have selective hearing. And whenever I hear, like replace yourself, it's like, I get that, but also the kind of business I have, the owner's intent in the kind of business I'm creating is very built on the brand and my face and my reputation, which I'm okay with because that's allowing me to make a lot of money now as opposed to building something low profit and then sell it, one day. I mean, that's just not in my wheelhouse, not my gift mix. But right now, doing really well, but being able to pay I love it. I love just saying like, can you solve this problem in my business? Yes. Okay. I'll pay you.
Done.
It's done. Yeah.
I would say the other way to think about what you're doing is you're freeing yourself up to actually do the things you're the best at.
Right.
So money gives you the opportunity to pay people to do the things that aren't going to be your biggest strength and focus your time on the things that move the needle the most and bring the most value to people. I got two more questions in that I kind of like to think of this as like hard truths for young entrepreneurs for just a second. So if you could shake every young entrepreneur,
I already know what I want to say.
Just once.
Yeah.
What are you saying to them?
You should never build your own thing. Stop thinking
Come on, talk about
like
that.
you want to build your own thing. Omar, hey, Pastor Omar, I'm really looking to, go out and start building my own thing. No one is successful from building their own thing. You're literally successful for building other people's things. When I talk about the lash company, when I even talk about what I'm doing right now, everything I'm doing is to help people build their own thing. I spent my 20s. I'm so glad about this. I'm so glad God had us in this season, but I built someone else's church and someone else's organization and business, and it gave me the insight to now help other people build in a different way. It's always never building my own thing. And I think a lot of young people feel like that they have the wherewithal because of social media and because of guys like me, and they're telling you to start your own business. And I get that, but don't interpret it like you're building your own thing. Because if you start that way, you're going to sustain it that way. And business is a byproduct of value you add to the marketplace. And then the marketplace responds. The reason why people start businesses and they go nowhere is because they literally built it from in here and they didn't build it from out there. Business isn't emotional. It's data. So, everyone's in this whole thing like, I am the niche. I really want to do this thing, man, where we, play golf, eat ice cream, and talk about ministry. And it's like, that's not going to work. That's you. You're just projecting you out there. And so that would be like my shake to young people is like, go build somebody else's thing. Go serve a king. Go serve a queen. Like, learn as much as you can. When I think about Art, who's 23, who makes double what all his friends his age make, whose life experience based on the rooms he's in, the conversations he's around, the trips he goes on, the food he eats. Art's going to be a millionaire before I became a millionaire. And that's just simply because he's down and he's not building his own thing. And honestly, we've gone through seasons where he has been. I'm like handing him clients, like, hey, just go do some more work and you can make some more money. But I'm realizing like that there's actually more power for Art to just like have his mind on the video department. And it's building deep roots as opposed to him just odd jobs. And that's why that's what, solopreneurs are doing, young solopreneurs. You're just hopping to and from these odd jobs and it's not sustainable and you're susceptible for something to happen. But that's what I would say. It's just like business is an opportunity to serve. Bring it back to the whole way we started this conversation. When your personal brand, when people think of it like this brand gives me so much value, it helps me do this. That's where like the law of reciprocity kicks in and people just want to, when people pay me money, they say, thank you. Omar, thank you for giving me that offer. I needed it. And I hear other people who do the same thing and they're like, this dude friggin' took my money.
Wow.
like, well, that person took your money because they are building their own thing, you know. So that would be like my shake to the young people is don't build your own thing,
Bro, so good.
build other people's things.
So good, man. Thank you so much for doing this and hanging out. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you, appreciate your coaching, appreciate the value that you've brought. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually part of his inner circle, and the value that I've gotten out of everything that Omar does is it fast tracks so much of what God's put in my heart. There's so much time that I'm saving that I wouldn't be saving if it wasn't for your coaching. So thank you for that. And I would just tell you if you're not familiar with Omar, his content, obviously give him a follow. But you run the content to cash challenges. If you're a young entrepreneur, creator,
Old entrepreneur, creator 2.0, I like to call him.
If you're in your 2.0 season, whatever.
Are you in your 2.0 season, or are you still in 1.0? Because you dress like you're in your 1.0.
I'm in denial. I'm in denial. I'm just holding on as long as I can. But if you're trying to build something right now and you feel stuck, I would really encourage you to jump into one of his content to cash challenges. They're generally 4-day events. Does that sound right? Am I saying
it's
that
like
right? 5-day event.
Live on Zoom.
So extremely valuable. You can do them from your house, your living room, but you're going to walk away with some major takeaways. He doesn't do this like content to cash challenge where it's like he's like almost giving you the valuable information and then like you got to pay the big fee to get the rest of it. He gives so much value just in that challenge.
Dude, some girl, her name's Sophia. She did the homework for one of the days, and the next day she came on the call and she's like, I closed $50,000 in the DMs. I was like,
exactly.
And all you did was pay me $197. Cool.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. So again, if you're not familiar with his content and some of the offers he has, go check those out because those are extremely valuable. I love you, bro. I appreciate you.
Shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Talents. Learn how to make your money work for you.
The good money moves.
The good money moves.
The good money moves. I love you, man. I told you this when we were golfing. I have loved watching you grow because I've known you long enough. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in you. I'm a fan. I feel like that cheerleader on the side where every time I see you have success, I'm just like cheering you on, man. And I think the work you're doing is really profound. And I think that in a lot of ways, you're probably just getting started. So
thank you. I received that.
Appreciate you, man.